Yeah, how's it going, guys? It's Richie Unicorn Caller here, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. We are back with a brand new video, and actually doing another dungeon analysis video where we basically kind of just talk to you guys and work together with this specific boss, which is the last boss of Selenopolis. So, final warning though, if you don't want to be spoiled or if you haven't got into the last boss of Selenopolis, please click away from the video and make sure to fight him. But if you want to get some tips and tricks and also some challenge mode content as well, then feel free to keep watching. But I was on last night with some really nice people in Team Up, and obviously we failed, but I did get some information about challenge mode. And yeah, the main boss obviously is Khonsu. Now, different from challenge mode and standard mode, a lot of people get this confused. So, standard mode is where you have a lot more flexibility. You can flee and come back in the dungeon sigil. You can just do a whole bunch of other things as I hear noises, but you can customize your deck while you're in the dungeon itself. You have a lot more accessibility. Now, challenge mode is a lot different, and there is a lot of things you need to understand about challenge mode. First things first, you cannot flee and come back and join the dual sigil itself. So once you flee or concede, that is basically it. You can't just like walk back into the battle ring or try and teleport out and like try and come back in the battle ring. It doesn't work. Another thing about challenge mode is that it will be restricted to your own allowed spells. So basically, what I'm saying is PvP only allowed spells. So that's right. You can't use Faint. You can't use like Scald, Incinerate, or all that other junk. No, you have to use PvP allowed spells. And then lastly but not least, and probably the biggest one, is probably the stat caps. And the stat caps are probably one of the most important things to talk about, because you want to make sure that you're at least on point or at least underneath the stat cap. So for example, if you're at like 230 damage and the stat cap is like 150 or whatever, then your stats will be scaled all the way to 150 max damage, right? So it's very important to make sure that you're checking in with the stat caps and stuff like that, and just making sure that you're not going over the limit. You just want to kind of find a sweet spot. I'll actually bring up the stat cap chart if you want, but that's probably one of the biggest things about challenge mode is the stat caps. A lot of people don't know about that, and it can bring in a lot of confusion. So over here, I'm gonna go to Discord. I'm actually gonna open this in a browser real quick so we can zoom in, and we're gonna go over here. Well, no, let's just bring it up here. And now this is basically what the stat caps are, right? And let's see if I can zoom in. Can I? I don't think I can. But yeah, you have a chart right here, and that chart is basically going to show you everything, right? Let me see. I can actually bring it up here. All right, better picture, and we can zoom in. So level 170 stat scaling. Zoom in. This is what it's gonna be like. Over here, you got your max health, you got your max mana, which is just whatever, accuracy, pierce, damage, critical, pip conversion, etc., etc. So that's basically the stat caps for level 170 as of right now. Let me move my head so you can see the fire stat caps as well. And we don't know if they change them from time to time, but yeah, level 170. If the level does increase by level 180, then there will be level 180 stat caps, and etc., etc. Now, this theoretically only kind of applies to challenge mode, so you don't necessarily have to worry about this if you don't plan on doing challenge mode in general, but it's definitely good to kind of just keep written down, or at least take a picture of, just so you know like what stats you have to keep. So For example, I'm a life wizard, right? I got 15,449 max health. That is the max health stat caps. And you'll see that my outgoing is dropped all the way to 112 outgoing only, right? So if you're at 200 outgoing or like 230 outgoing, it will just get scaled back to 112. So that's when you're kind of at least prioritizing maybe getting more health or getting other stuff such as accuracy or pip chance, etc., right? You always want to be at least over at least 100 pip chance, just so you can, make sure that works. It's a little frisky, like a little finicky for whatchamacallit, for a challenge mode, but yeah, just get over 100% like pip chance. But that's basically for stat caps. Let's get into the main Khonsu fight now. Enough yammering on. Let's talk about that, because that is basically where we get into the complicated stuff. And yes, it is. It's very complicated of a fight. Okay, so standard mode is basically the similar thing. They both are similar in a sense. Let me bring up my face cam. But basically, you're going to be polymorphed. Think of the Novus fight, where you had to be polymorphed and you had to like set up these gambits and stuff like that and try and do a little bit more damage. This one is a little bit straightforward, I would have to say. In challenge mode, it's a little bit more complex because they're giving you a little bit more complex gambits. And of course, if you're not used to reading like hieroglyphics or a lot of symbols, then you're definitely going to have a very, very rough time doing this fight. And of course, every time you meet those gambit conditions, it's going to do a 10k each. Now for this, you would need at least 4 players to at least set off their gambit. It could be the same player or it can be like 2 other players, but you just need to basically set off these gambits at least 4 times. At least that's what this lovely young lady Violet has told me. And I would imagine it probably doesn't scale to like a certain player count. Like if you were to do this with 3 players, I don't know if you would just need 3 of the gambit conditions to be done, but I would just do 4 probably. And anyway, mine, I got really unlucky, and mine is actually balanced. And this is probably the one that really confused me, because it just gave me a bunch of just symbols that I had no idea what to do. But basically, you need a blade on yourself, you need a shield on yourself, and you also need a heal overtime on yourself. And then for the enemy gamer condition, they need a damage overtime on themselves. They need a harmful ward, so like a trap or a negative thing, and they also need a negative charm as well. And so once you have met the gambit conditions for a balance, and hopefully you don't get balance, the other ones are super easy. Like for the storm, it's just blades, I'm pretty sure. So, those are straightforward for life. I think it's just like heal overtimes. So some of those are like super easy to do, but for the balance one, it's just really tricky, especially for my first time, because I just had no idea in general about what to do. Now, you also want to be careful on discarding some of your spells. I recommend discarding some of these little boop spells, like the 25 damage one. You can get rid of those. Those are just kind of like filler cards. And you want to basically focus on your own gambit conditions and basically try and get that gambit off, right? And yeah, at first it took a while, because of course I didn't know like what to do, and I just kind of like discarded a bunch of stuff, and I kind of like used spells without knowing how to fulfill that gambit condition. But after a while we kind of figured it out, and we got the gambit conditions done, and yeah, we just figured it out from there. And like I said, each of these is going to do 10k damage each. If you use your Scion spell, which is basically the Gambit, if you use the Gambit spell and it doesn't actually go off, it will actually come back to your deck. It will still take your pips, but it will just go back in your deck. But for the other spells that you discard, those will not be reshuffled back into your deck at all. So make sure you be careful when you're discarding your spells or casting your spells in general. I recommend just making sure you know what gambit condition you have to do, and then you should feel a lot more confident in doing your gambit condition, right? And so here I'll show you the clip of us doing the last Gambit condition, which is the ice one. And basically, all the ice has to do is basically just get 6 shields on themselves. And that one's super easy, right? And of course, I get the balance one, and that was like super difficult, right? But anyway, moving on from that, fast forwarding a little bit, does 10k. And then again, once you do that like 4 times, everybody will basically, get unmorphed. And then you'll get to phase 2 of the battle. So, like, yay, I can finally use my own spells, my own deck, my own stats, and, everything else, right? Everything seems like it's going well. But now, here, check this out. And what do you know? And yes, Lord behold, Malice has returned, as Khonsu has shape-shifted over him. Now this, I will say this, no exaggeration, that this might potentially be one of the most hardest bosses in the entire game, right? Might not be in the entire game, but it's up there for one of the hardest bosses. And the crazy thing is that this is just one of his polymorphs, right? So let me explain the cheats for Malice. Now, you're going to notice something. Keep an eye out for this. So I think Violet is going to shield or something like that, but just watch this. Just check this out. Just check this out. Just look at this. So embrace your hatred. We still got that cheat. And that's going to be a mass mantle. Inaccuracy. So you're going to have a lot of people fizzling. And also getting debuffed.
They put Malice in here? Are you kidding me?
There's my reaction.
They put Malice in here?
See, fire melts ice.
Oh my gosh, challenge mode. It's challenge mode Malice.
And yes, that is right. It is a challenge mode Malice. I will let you guys see my own face over here. Yes, it is challenge mode Malice, and it has the same exact cheats. So this is when it becomes hard, because you're going to have a lot of people that don't actually know about challenge mode Malice because they probably never done the challenge mode for the Nightmare Dungeon. So if you're someone that has done the Nightmare Dungeon in challenge mode, you will know what to do. Now, apparently, it does not stop there, because he actually has, again, like I said, the same challenge mode rule sets. So since he is actually a fire that is dual schooling myth, that means that you can only use a select certain amount of things. And following that, when it comes to challenge mode rule sets, there's only a few things that you can do. I can actually pull this up in the Nightmare Dungeon guide real quick that we had back in the day, but you basically cannot use a certain amount of spells depending on the school that you're fighting. In this case, it would have to be, fire. So here we go. So since he is fire, that means you can do blades only, right? However, that means that you cannot use any traps or any shields, and that's when we saw that he said, fire melts ice, he'll just take away your shields, right? Now, since he is also a myth, dual schooling as well, it doesn't show up on his top screen, but he also has those kind of cheats as well. Now, over here it says that you can use blades still, plus traps. However, remember that he's also a fire, so you still can't use traps. That means you can't use any shields, or you can't debuff him at all. So you can't dispel him, you can't really debuff him at all. Just basically blade stack, and that's it. And it sounds easy enough. It really does. However, you forget to notice that this is the challenge mode version of Malice. So he's going to be, putting in a lot more work than usual. And he's going to be a little pain in the butt. He's definitely not going to be easy to go up against, in a sense. Now, my recommendation is to just blade up the hitter, the storm hitter, whoever wants to hit, and just blade them up, and then hopefully, get a really good hit. Now, remember, this dude is going to be stun spamming you. He is going to be using Beguile on you, like Monster Mash. He's also going to be hitting you pretty hard, so maybe it might be worth a shot to maybe have a decent healer or two, or maybe just at least one heal. I mean, honestly, I think everybody was doing decent. However, when it comes to Storm Wizards, for some reason, Malice just hates Storm Wizard. I don't know why. I think it's just because he automatically targets like the lowest health player, which would have to be our Storm Wizard. And so when that happens, he'll hit him with something like an Efreet. And when stuff like that happens, he can take a lot of damage. Like, I've seen Storm Wizard take a lot of damage. I think it's actually coming up right now with an Efreet. Yeah, this Efreet is just... There can be a lot of damage dealt if you're not being careful around this boss, right? We'll see the hit right here, about 3,000 up to like almost 4,000. And that's a minus 95 weakness as well. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you carry like a Dark Pact, or if you have someone on your team that has the Purge spell, which removes up to 3 debuffs, I highly recommend that spell. Because he is going to be debuffing you a lot. And as you can see here, Violet actually casted that, and it's going to remove up to 3 debuffs. So, again, a very versatile spell. The main trick for Malice is to basically kind of spam counter him a bunch of times, but also just kind of blade up your hitter and make sure that they stay alive. Some other things to note about Malice is that he will summon in a kind of like minus 95 shield or whatever from time to time, and he'll also have this aura of hatred. Now, in order to actually fully kill him, you actually need to remove that aura by either hitting him or placing a trap on him or a debuff, or basically just targeting him in general. You have to remove that aura before you kill, because if you kill him with that aura, he will actually just revive himself. So it's definitely kind of like tricky ordering. You should definitely put your main hitter all the way in the last spot, and you should probably put your tank player all the way in the first spot. This order wasn't really good for us because obviously I'm in the second spot, and the order for us just was not good in general. But as you can see, I'm still trying to just focus on countering him. You can also use the auras as well, like the negative auras that can also kind of remove his own aura in a sense, right? And like I said, it's all about countering him. It's all about just making sure that your hitter and just your team is healthy and alive, and overall make sure that those debuffs stay off of you, because those debuffs can stack. As you can see, I have a bunch. Now, what you can use if you are a healer is that you can do stuff like healing. So if you're a life wizard, you can do bottom path rebirth, you can do bottom path pigsy, you can do Spree Swarm, but I honestly might remove Spree Swarm because I didn't really find it as useful as anything else. You can also use other spells like Dark Surge, you know, give people some pips and whatnot, you know, just a whole bunch of other stuff. But, you know, if you coordinate with your team correctly, then yeah, you can definitely, like, you know, one-shot him easily. There's actually a guide up there that actually shows you how to defeat him in case if he was Malice. Now, I say that as in case if he was Malice. The thing about Khonsu, which makes him a very tough boss, is the fact how he can polymorph into other creatures. So, he can polymorph into Hun Hao, which, if you guys don't know, Hun Hao is the Azteca raid boss. And then he will have that same rule set for Hun Hao for that raid, from what I assume. He will also transform potentially as the personal Daemon boss, which is the Crying Sky raid, the final boss as well. And then, of course, we have Malice, so he can also transform into Malice. And then, last but not least, he has the potential chance, and I really want to get some footage of this whenever I can find a team that's willing to, like, do these runs with me. But he can also potentially transform into the Devourer, which is just absolutely insane. If you guys don't remember the Devourer, he was one of the most, still is one of the most formidable bosses in this entire game. There are still people that have not done that quest to this day in 2024 because of how difficult that boss battle is, or just people that don't want to join team ups in general. I'll usually join team ups occasionally from time to time because I really do like that boss, but wow, that's amazing. And apparently, the Devourer will do some of its same cheats. Like, it will devour a player, and then it will do, like, shadow damage or something like that. And I don't even know if they put, like, challenge mode rule sets for the Devourer overall. I don't know if it's just going to be, like, the same cheats that he's always had. But overall, though, that is pretty interesting to see. And it makes me wonder, though, I am curious, because let me look at Malice's health real quick. I wonder if the health also scales with the polymorph. Let me see. No, it's just at 80k. This version of Khonsu in challenge mode is just at 80k. So I'd imagine that all the polymorphs will be at 80k. But dude, when he transforms into one of these creatures and it's gonna have the same stats, the same cheats, and the same attacks, that is interesting. And you'll definitely have to maybe cycle your deck a little bit or change up the strategy depending on what like boss you get, right? But this is a very powerful boss, but it can also be conquered if you have a coordinated team and if you just blade up and just basically just hit. Now, from what I've seen, at least in the guide, I mean, pretty sure you can just like pretty much blade in a sense and probably just blade stack. So I don't think it's like too hard, but it's probably the most difficult part is kind of like finding a team that's comfortable with challenge mode in general, and of course doing that first stage, which is of course setting up that gambit condition so that you can get unpolymorphed. So yeah, this is probably one of my favorite bosses in the game, even though we didn't win this at all because sadly our Storm Wizard did disconnect mid like round, so I think they were just tired and probably just gave up honestly because they weren't really doing enough damage. And sadly, our Myth Wizard couldn't even do anything because his attacks weren't showing up. And the reason for that, because the attacks that he was trying to cast or basically equip, he couldn't use those because we're in challenge mode. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, in challenge mode, you can only use advanced combat type of spells. You can only use PvP allowed spells. So if a spell is banned from PvP, it basically just cannot be used in challenge mode. So, for example, if you want to cast a feint, well, you cannot cast a feint because a feint is actually banned in PvP. If you wanted to cast Guardian Spirit, you can't cast that because that is banned, right? If you wanted to cast something like the Top Path of Rebirth, which is basically just the Absorb Shield version with the Burst Heal, you cannot cast that spell at all. You have to do the Bottom Path of Rebirth, which I honestly highly recommend because Bottom Path Rebirth is very versatile for some of these fights, especially if the boss is going to start spamming you with a lot of stuff, just like traps and stuff like that. Bottom Path of Rebirth, I highly recommend it. I think in this clip, I'm actually about to cast it, and basically it will remove up to 6 to 5 shields. Actually, let me check. I'm pretty sure it's up to... No, it's actually up to 7 traps, not shields. My bad. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sleepy. But Bottom Path of Rebirth can remove up to 7 traps. And then when it does that, it will actually give you a blade on the selected ally. I don't think I have the clip up because I brung up the stat cap. But Bottom Path of Rebirth, I highly recommend if you're a life wizard. If you have the spellments for it. I know not everybody has the spellments for it. But I highly recommend that because you might need it for this fight. And it might come in clutch too, just to have some extra blades here and there, you know, especially if you're allowed to use blades. But overall though, I really do like this boss fight. And I think I think what just sucks though is just the fact how like it's really hard to kind of like find people to do this with because I know not everybody really likes challenge mode. Here's the rebirth animation. I just wanted to show you this. It's going to give everybody heal over time, and again it's going to remove those traps, and then it's going to put a plus 20% blade, universal blade on all your allies. So yeah, you know, Bottom Path Rebirth, definitely cool. You can only have up to 4 in your deck, so be careful with that. But yeah, it's really fun. And then that pretty much, I think, wraps it up for our analysis. We basically kind of just gave up, and I kind of stopped recording because, it just, we couldn't really do anything. And she was an ice hitter, and, primarily you would want a storm probably to do this. I mean, anybody can hit in general as long as you have the right buffs and stats and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. We just kind of gave up at the end. It was close too. You only had like 26k health, so if we had the Storm Wizard still there, or if we had a full team, probably wouldn't even be that bad. But yeah, depending on who you're up to, you can definitely do some really good damage. But all in all, though, it's a very fun boss fight, and and again, like I said, I really do wish I can just have a team. But I don't know. I just probably wait it out just to let everybody get tired of it, and then I'll probably make my own team for it, because like I said, it doesn't seem so hard now that I finally kind of like understand how to do it and what spells to pack and stuff like that, and what gear to have as well, especially when I want to reach those stat caps. In this video, I actually only have 13k. Like, I only have 13k health because I totally forgot about the level 170 stat caps, right? Like, I had 200 outgoing, but when I came in here, it got all the way dropped to 112, so I don't need that much outgoing anymore. But yeah, all in all, it's just a fun battle. I just wish more people were interested in challenge mode. We'll see how it goes in the future, but I don't know. But until then, hopefully you guys have a happy Thanksgiving, and if you are interested in doing challenge mode for this, definitely join our Discord. I'm definitely looking for people to do this with, and I definitely do want the badge. So yeah, definitely hit me up on Discord or join the Discord server. And yeah, until then, I'll see you guys later. Peace out.